Welcome everyone to the newest edition of Paper Reviews. My name is Chris Parrish. I am your host, but I am not alone. I'm alongside OMD and Chris Best, the co-host of Turnbuckle Talk every Tuesdays here on our local establishment and on the Turnbuckle Studios. Guys, welcome. Thank you. How did you enjoy Payback?
I quite enjoyed it. It did have a slow build for me, but when it picked up, it really picked up and kept me interested.
I'm with OMD on this one. This was a good show. Wasn't the best. There were some up moments, some down moments. Typical of WWE pay-per-views for the most part.
Now expand on that, but before you do, I'm just going to shout out a couple people in the chat. We got Basser coming in, showing the OLE love. We'd like to see them. We got our good old friend Ed Fry say, hey, gents, just stopping by to say hi. Watching Payback now. We'll watch when I'm done. Well, that is okay. If you want to just mute us and keep us tabbed, we appreciate that. And if anybody else is in the chat and wants to be involved, all you have to do is speak. This is open. This is free. If you have a channel, we allow yourself to plug your channel, but also in respect to the show itself. Chris Best, your expansion on that typical WWE, because I think for the most part, this was a solid show.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It was a solid show, but there were some minor dips in the show. You know what I mean?
As most have to be, right? It's very hard to hit that 100 on a show. But let's get right at it, as we do have updated graphics from last night's edition of Paper Previews. As you saw the black and white, as you see from the main poster up above, we now have some color graphics here between the cage, between Trish Stratus and Becky Lynch. That was our opening match of the night, and boy, was it an opening match of the night. Before we get to anything, we got our friend Joshua Joseph, host of The Voice with Joshua Joseph, coming in saying, hey, fellas. Hello, Josh. Nice to see you. Happy you're here. How did you enjoy Payback? Let us know in the chat. But how did you guys enjoy the opening match, the steel cage match, Trish Stratus versus Becky Lynch?
Personally, I loved it. I loved it for being Trish's first cage match, at least televised. I'm not sure if she ever did one at a house show or not. It was fantastic. Great rotation in terms of who was controlling the flow of the match at points. You got to see that aggressive side of Becky. I don't want to say almost heelish or going back to those days, but you could see that extra aggressiveness coming out of both of them.
Yeah, and I totally enjoyed this match too, and I get where OMD is coming from, but in a cage match, OMD, you kind of needed Becky to get that aggression out, because this is a feud that's been, building over 7 months almost.
Yeah.
So the aggression needed to be there. The only thing that did take me aback was the fact that this was the opening match. I thought this was going to go on later on in the card, but at the same time, WWE's philosophy is start pay-per-views off at the bang lately.
Right.
It's not just their philosophy. I can attest that if I'm not in the main event, I want to be that first match, because that is your opportunity to get the crowd going. You have an opportunity to hit a home run. You dictate the flow of that night. And a couple things to kind of point out. OMD, you weren't sure if this was Trish Stratus's first cage match. It, in fact, was her first cage match. And I thought it was amazing. Also known, Petey Williams was the one responsible for producing this match, in case people are curious. And some things to kind of point out. We saw both Trish and Becky do a prelude of people who helped them along the way, in the sense of people that came before them, as we saw Trish Stratus use a Widow's Peak. We also saw Becky Lynch use a Twist of Fate, in signifying the honor and the respect that are Lita and Victoria, who happened to be WWE's first ever women's steel cage match in company history.
Okay. The one issue, the one thing, and JJ saying he loved this match. It was the best way to start the show. He and the fans watching his live stream called it the match of the night. Okay. I won't take it to that level, but it was definitely a banger. The one area too that I almost took issue with, and I was probably more concerned for Trish's health, was when she got caught up on the cage and was flopped down, because she actually did put her leg right through as she was trying to climb back up.
Yeah.
I know from a personal experience, I have done something very similar in the sense. In fact, I actually broke my kneecap doing something very similar. So I can definitely see where you're coming from. However, sometimes, depending on where behind the knee it is, that might actually have been more of a focal point of her strength. And let's not forget, she is absolutely masterful in the art of yoga.
Right.
So
absolutely.
that could have just been something where she was very comfortable with.
So she
go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so she, like Alexa Bliss, can really fake an injury just like that. You know what I mean? Alexa Bliss being double jointed there.
Right.
And something to also know, we saw the NXT Women's Champion Tiffany Stratton at ringside. There's been a lot of speculation, a lot of seeds planted that perhaps Becky Lynch and Tiffany Stratton are made to do something down the road following this match. But we also saw a couple of high spots in the match where we saw not only a superplex done from the top of the turnbuckle off the cage, done by Becky to Trish, which I thought was amazing. A great landing.
Perfectly executed suplex, by the way.
Yeah. And then we also saw, which ended up becoming our finish to the match, but they called it a manhandle slam. I prefer to call it a back bottom, because when I hear anything handle slam, I'm thinking of a pump handle slam, which is basically what the Road Dogg used to do, which is more or less kind of the starting way of what Rhea Ripley uses for her finish, whereas the back bottom is more of a rock bottom. That's just my personal opinion, but
right.
Like we said, that did get Becky Lynch the win, as we see in this updated graphic. Becky Lynch was our winner. Your guys' thoughts on not only this match, but also what became the aftermath, where Trish then started blaming Zoe for her loss, slapped her, only to prompt Zoe to pretend like she was going to leave the cage, only to slam the door shut, then to hit her finisher on Trish, remove her thank you Trish shirt off her, throw it down in the face of Trish Stratus, which left us signalizing perhaps Trish is not done with WWE, like many were to think, and perhaps could be starting a feud with Zoe Stark. Your guys' thoughts on kind of just the finishing of this match and what we saw afterwards?
So this definitely was the blow off for Becky and Trish. Cage matches should always be the blow off for any feud, in my opinion. I do see something with Trish and Zoe happening, but not in the immediate future. Maybe we can build to Zoe and Trish at maybe WrestleMania or something like that, because I know Trish needs to disappear for just a little while, you know.
I loved it. Quite frankly, if they're gonna do this, whether it's a one-off or whether it's a short feud to elevate Zoe, I'd rather just see them get it done, so that then Trish can go back. It was announced she was coming back for an extended run. She's had an extended run. It's been brilliant. It's been masterful. And I loved what they did, starting with the tug of war.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just move on now. Let Trish and Zoe figure this out or finish it, and let Trish move on.
I think we're going to move to Zoe and Rhea Ripley.
Okay. I do think before we go there, we are going to get some sort of a match or maybe a small feud with Zoe and Trish just to help elevate Zoe into that next category to be ready. But I wouldn't be shocked. I think Zoe has looked very well. She had an absolute classic of the last woman standing match on Monday Night Raw, as we all got to see during the Monday Night Raw watch along with our friend Karl Carafel. But also, I think this is a great opportunity for Zoe Stark to get recognized now with the audience and the crowd at being that face again. And now you have an emotional interest behind Zoe, whereas before when she got called up, you might not have had that. So I do think you got to let that have an opportunity to sparkle before you just burn the fire out or try to see how hot the flame can get. Any lasting impressions on this before we go to the next match?
Yeah, I was gonna say I did like the turn. The turn actually sort of reminded me of when Virgil turned on the $1 Million Man. I don't know why, but that's the first thought that came to my head when I saw Zoe make that turn.
We'll get to it a little bit later on, but I think I see Zoe's next feud in relation to where Chris went with Rhea Ripley, just a different superstar.
Yeah. And we go into our next match, but before we do so, we just want to give a shout out to our partners, our affiliates, our good old friends over at RogueEnergy.com, where if by chance this is a little late for you, as we saw last night, paper previews was a little late for our good old friend Tom Collihu, you might be wanting a little bit of a kickstart. And Rogue Energy does just that. You can get multiple flavors, including their new sour watermelon that is now in stock. Ed Fry's watermelon. I know I'm speaking your language, but make sure that no matter what you want to get, whether it's energy drinks, if you're a U.S. resident, it's the energy drinks in a can, or maybe you want some good old apparel, whether it's the mouse pads or hats, etc. At that shopping cart, use our promo code OLEPOD, save 10% off your order, and you can do that as many times as you want, because we don't want you just to save money on one order. We want you to save money on all orders. As we head to our next match, which what we thought was going to be The Miz against, with everybody saying, L.A. Knight, we actually get John Cena coming out. And that prompted The Miz to come out. They had some back and forth. In fact, John Cena asked The Miz for some hosting advice, where Miz told him to get involved a little bit more and to imply like his will into the show. So he does. And John Cena inserts himself as the special guest referee in the match. Yes, we have updated graphics. And yeah, that's how this started. LA Knight then comes out. We get the match. Your guys' thoughts on this match?
And you know what? I was actually fine with John Cena being inserting himself in this match. He didn't interfere too deeply. He just played the ref, and I was fine with that. But all in all, this match was pretty entertaining, in my opinion. It wasn't anything spectacular, but it was a good match nonetheless.
And I'm going to take this to the next level. I thought this was a fantastic match. I thought the story they told was brilliant. Miz did what he always does in elevating a new talent. Not that LA Knight really needed the elevation, but it also elevated The Miz, made him look relevant, and let us see what he can actually do instead of just being the laughingstock as they want him to be. The Miz is a main event player and should be.
Without a doubt. And what I loved is this match was a great representation of what we saw going in with the setup, with the back and forth. We saw a lot of that, whether it was the shot for shots that they decided to do to begin the match a lot, whether it's Miz trying to use his cowardly presence to get out of the match at times, as we have a new person, Dally Pool, coming in. Hey yo to you, Dally Pool. Thank you for joining us. Let us know a little bit more about yourself. How did you find us? And thank you very much for spending your evening with our local establishment. Very much appreciated. We're talking some WWE Payback. My name is Chris Parrish. I'm alongside both OMD and Chris Best, as we're talking LA Knight versus The Miz, as John Cena was a special guest referee. Corey Graves, I thought, had one of the comments of the match, and he said, a signal to a great ref is not noticing him, and I barely can see John Cena. And I thought that was so funny on so many different levels.
And here's the thing: I guarantee you, he heard Jimmy Corderas say that, because Jimmy Corderas mentions it every time he's got a comment on Aubrey Edwards.
Right. No, and John Cena was brilliant in his role as the guest ref. Yes, he got his fist up or had it balled up when they had that one brief interaction with The Miz in the corner, and then Miz ducked and LA Knight almost blocked him. You saw both of them get into his face, and he didn't do anything to disrupt the match. I mean, the biggest thing he did was kick The Miz's arm off the rope.
Yeah, which we've seen plenty of
Shade
times.
Earl Hebner right there.
Referees.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have Dally Prime saying, in their prime, Mary Kissavoid, Stacey Keebler, Tori Wilson, Trish Stratus. I'm from Belfast, Ireland. Just stumbled across the channel. Well, thank you very much for stumbling across our platform. We appreciate you and welcome you at any time. And just a shout out to anybody on the YouTube side. If you like what you see, or you just are nice enough to support, make sure you hit that notification bell and subscribe to our channel just to get more content from our local establishment. If you like the video right now, make sure you hit that thumbs up. It goes a long way. But yeah, I also want to get to Leeds' comment where he said it was LA Knight versus Miz was bad for me, but that's my opinion. Now, I want Leeds, if you can in the chat, please elaborate more why you thought it was bad, because I'm going to tell you what I actually did enjoy. I like the fact that we had a simpler pace. We saw a very fast-paced opening match. We needed to come down a little bit to get into the next match, which is just kind of like as normal. And sometimes when you have a PLE, sometimes that second match is already going to have a dip. And I thought it was really smart to have probably your most over athlete right now in LA Knight be in that next match just to retain that audience level. Mm-hmm. But I actually like the fact that we didn't see a lot of stuff out of the wheelhouse here. We had a very, and this is going to come off very, very maybe worse hearing it than what I mean. And I know Miz gets credited for being a safe worker, but I thought this was a very safe match. I thought this match did its purpose. It was made to give LA Knight that elevation into that next level, look like $1 million, which I thought he did. I don't think you were expecting a 5-star match here, but I think what you were expecting was an LA Knight victory, which we did see after he hit the BFT, which, if people are wondering, blood force trauma. But we also saw some great little acts from Miz as he tried to be a little bit of a baby. He tried to be a coward. He tried to run away. But he also tried to get in the head of John Cena, as when he tried to hit the 5-knuckle shuffle, that really was his downfall. His ego played a part into the loss, which allowed LA Knight to pick up the victory and then, at the end, get a little bit of respect from John Cena. So as we get into that finish, what did you guys think about how this match ended, and what were your overall thoughts on this match?
So, I mean, this finish was completely obvious that LA Knight was going over, and this match was serviceable in the fact that we had The Miz basically doing the Jake the Snake Roberts role. Jake the Snake used to be that guy who would help new guys go into the main event spot in the 80s in early 90s. And that's what The Miz's role was in this match for LA Knight, in my opinion.
Okay. No, I loved the match. I loved the ending, right from Miz hitting the skull crushing finale up to the blunt force trauma, getting that Not that LA Knight really needs it, but getting that rub and that endorsement from John Cena, if that builds to something in the future where you get LA Knight versus John Cena in a one-off, great. If you don't, great.
Yeah, because that's where I'm wondering where do we go with LA Knight next? Do we go to John Cena? Do we go to, as Parrish mentioned when we were doing a watch along kind of thing between the three of us? Parrish, you had mentioned the possibility of John Cena and LA Knight tag teaming as well.
Yeah, I think we saw on SmackDown a tag team between both Austin Theory and Grayson Waller. And I wouldn't be surprised to think that maybe we're going to see some John Cena Grayson Waller down the road. But then also maybe we see some LA Knight Grayson Waller. Maybe we see some of that. Maybe we see Austin Theory get in the mix there. We'll talk more about Austin Theory just coming up. But maybe we see Grayson Waller and Austin Theory tag back up against maybe the team of John Cena and LA Knight.
Okay.
But I don't know. Like in terms of big feuds, I mean, moving on, I'd like to see LA Knight against either one of Grayson Waller or Austin Theory. I think Austin Theory might actually be better right now.
I mean, right now the world is LA Knight's oyster right now with the way things are going, with how his push is going and everything like that.
Yeah, and just before we get on to the next match, Cheryl White coming in, I just watched Payback. It was awesome. Very happy you enjoyed it. What was your favorite part of it? Let us know in the chat. And then Leeds coming in saying, I just don't get the hype for Knight, which I get because we have seen somebody like him in the past before. I think one of the reasons why there's a lot of hype, especially for maybe the North American audience, is he represents a lot of the average people. He is a guy that they're touting. He wasn't supposed to be there. All he's been doing is just grinding and working his way into an opportunity. And then when he finally has one, he's making the best of it. I think there's a lot of relatability with just the everyday working man, blue collar kind of type. And I think that's kind of the relatability factor you get out of LA Knight. Plus, he's kind of a fresh breath air when he does have his insults, like pulling out of the map and telling Logan Paul where he can stick every one of those bottles of Prime. I thought was very funny. I think he said the Miz had a sexual what was it? He had a sexual prowess of like a clogged toilet. So I thought that was pretty funny as well. So some of his one-liners are pretty funny.
You mentioned Logan Paul, and it just clicked in my head. I wouldn't mind LA Knight versus Logan Paul at some point.
I mean, maybe we'll see that coming in.
Coming in at the Royal Rumble or WrestleMania or.
Never say never in the world wrestling entertainment, brother. But we do go to our next match here, which is for the United States Championship. The defending champion, Rey Mysterio, going up against the man he defeated for this United States title, Austin Theory. And we saw the PWO, the Pittsburgh World Order, as the LWO were rocking PWO show. Shirts, because that's what they do. They replace the first thing with the city they're in sometimes. A great way to make a good chunk of marketing and advertisement and t-shirt money. So I like that. It's very good. But a quicker match, and I think this might have been the shortest match on the show today. I don't have the stats on the match times, but I'm sure somebody will let me know. But I actually thought this match wasn't that bad. I thought it was a good little throwaway match if you needed to. I thought their transitions were actually really good, really smooth. But the one thing I do want to point out, Rey Mysterio is 48 years old, which I'm still jealous of how well he is at 48 years old. Austin Theory is 26, which is the same age as Dominic, by the way. The difference of age between them is the same age as Rey's daughter, Aaliyah. 22 years old. I thought that was very interesting, the stat. But what were your guys' thoughts about this match?
For me, this match was the low point on the card. I found a lot of waiting and looking in the match. There was a lot of okay, what I'm going to do, and I'm going to clarify this with a point. It was when Theory dove through the ropes, did his somersault, hit the drop kick. Then all of a sudden, Ray looks behind him, falls back into the ropes, hits the basement drop kick, and then they're laying there. And it's like, that was what that match really, not just that one spot, but that there was a lot of that in that match. This was probably the worst match for me on the night.
Yeah, and I kind of agree with me, OMD. It was still a good match, but it wasn't the best match on the. It was probably the lowest match on the card for me as well. It was very entertaining. Just watching them, the two guys wrestle, matching speed for speed, basically between the two of them. But the finish, it was the finish that fell really flat for me.
Yeah, this to me felt like the perfect SmackDown match. You know, like if you had a commercial break, this could prolong it just a little bit. But there wasn't anything spectacular about this match, and I can understand why people are saying, "Well, then you should have gave us Chad Gable against Gunther." But one of the reasons why they didn't do that, and I can actually tell you why, is if there was a match to be cut in time for any other match, this was going to be that match because people knew this wasn't the match they paid the money to see. This is still a very passable match, but we didn't want. I don't think a lot of people wanted the title back on Austin Theory. I think the one thing you kind of wanted was maybe Santos against Austin Theory for the U.S. title instead. But I don't think anybody wanted a Gunther Chad Gable match to be cut in time in any way. Very similar to why Becky and Trish were not on SummerSlam. Triple H has even gone out and said that would have been the match that got cut in time, and he did not want to do that. I thought this was the safe play here. Put this match on, and that way, in case you had to cut a time in a match, this was going to be the match you did cut. And I even thought this match might have been a little bit better had they had more time. But at the same time, I'm also ready to get past this, just like anybody else. But as you alluded to earlier,
this was
Chris.
This was a match to just kind of remind us that Austin Theory was still there, is still in our memory. You know what I mean?
For me, Austin Theory has been relevant even when he had the U.S. title. I know everybody's criticized his booking, but he's always been relevant. He's been a fighting champion. Would I like to see the Santos versus Theory, the match to end that? Sure. I was honestly a little bit surprised. I was half expecting a heel turn from Santos in this match, but I am also looking forward to getting Ray versus Santos one-on-one for the title.
Yeah. And I think this is also a great way to take Austin Theory out of contention for the U.S. title. He's been tied with that tied around that title for the better part for a year and a half now. So I think it's a good time to kind of just get him away from it, have him do something different, something fresh, something new. And as you alluded to earlier, it was perhaps a fall flat finish, but it was a reversal from an 8-count down to a roll up for the 1-2-3. Rey Mysterio, the greatest mask of all time, retains his United States Championship, and to nobody's expectation, or even maybe want, like we just saw the safe play. Nobody turned on anybody here. If this match was to get cut on time, then I don't think a turn was proper anyway. You would just rush that, and it wouldn't have been as memorable as it could be without maybe some seeds being planted and a little bit more of a focal point of the story.
Right.
But that's just my thought.
Even with
final thoughts before we go to the next match.
Even with a Santos versus Ray match one-on-one, you don't need to have the seeds planted. You don't even need to do the heel turn. You can have Ray go out there as the leader of the LWO and say, look, this was your shot. Now I want to give it to you.
Yeah, you could do this just like how Eddie and Ray did it for WrestleMania 21, where they were like, okay, we don't have a match at Mania. Why don't we wrestle each other?
Yeah.
And before we get to the next match, we actually have a backstage interview, the first one of the night, I believe. And it was Kathy Kelly bringing out Becky Lynch. And before Becky Lynch can really get a word out, we hear the NXT Women's Champion Tiffany Stratton come out behind her. And formally apologized to Becky Lynch because she said, I received a lot of correction when I said I'm going to be a better NXT champion than Charlotte Flair, than Rhea Ripley, all these people. And she's like, I even said Becky Lynch. And I just want to apologize for saying that you were ever an NXT champion. I love the way she said it. I love the way she executed it. I thought it was a great way to give somebody one of the best backhanded compliments you can give, because out of respect, she was apologizing for a mistake, but she just so happens to be apologizing for thinking Becky did something more in NXT, which then I thought that was just beautiful. Becky Lynch then says, well, maybe you should take a little bit more time to focus on your upcoming title match this Tuesday, and I'll be there watching you as it is. And then Tiffany just said, oh, thank you. Toodles. And then leaves.
Yeah.
End of segment.
Yeah.
Very well done, in my opinion, and a great way of just adding that little bit of a tease for a potential match between the two.
Because it's clear we're going to Becky and Tiffany at some point.
Yes, and it's also clear that Tiffany is the next in line to be called up for the women's division.
Yeah, and I'm going to call it right now. Tiffany Stratton will eliminate Becky Lynch in the 2024 Women's Royal Rumble. I'm calling that September 3rd.
Okay.
But as we are then going to our
you get the chance.
Yeah, I'll actually write a 37 about the 15 mark. Cool. See, I'm doing this too as I go. I have notes, I have graphics. Guys, I call a plumber
on your A game
and tell him
He's
I have my
all
shit
over
together. And then
you'd almost think Parrish had the day off today and was getting practice.
Oh, to be fair, I can do this every day, all day. But we are in our next match, which is for the undisputed WWE Tag Team Championships. Not just any match. In fact, it's a Steel City Street Fight. Usually we see something silly like that on live events, house shows as you call it, or perhaps every Monday or Friday on your respective Raw or SmackDown, never really on a PLE. However, this match was awesome because it was a glorified fight between these guys, but everything just flowed together perfectly. And I thought it was great. We saw hockey sticks, we saw Penguins jerseys, we saw brawls throughout the arena, we saw a plethora, there's that word, Ed, I know you love it when I use that word, but we saw a plethora of interference. But what did you guys think about this match before we get into detail about?
I had so much fun watching this match. I had fun listening to Corey Graves for once on announcing, especially when he mentioned it kind of felt meta to me, but when he mentioned Adam Graves of the New York Rangers, I was like, that is just so meta of you, Corey, and you didn't even realize that.
No. For me, match of the night.
I also want to just point out Adam Graves was an Edmonton Oiler well before a New York Ranger, Corey.
Yeah.
Yes, he was. Yes.
Show Canada a little bit more respect there.
Yeah. Match of the night.
Yeah.
The story told was brilliant. Loved the finish. Loved the build to the finish. You get the Kevin Owens move, pulling the Jeff Hardy through the table. It was just the match of the night. I'm glad that, the Penguins jerseys got blood on because I'm just not a fan of the Penguins.
I did find it weird that two Montreal Canadiens fans were wearing Pittsburgh jerseys, but
well, that's because they're the faces and they're in Pittsburgh.
Mm-hmm. But they also represent two great Canadian hockey players in Mario Lemieux and Sid the Kid, Sidney Crosby.
And
so at
Quebec.
the very least,
yes, Quebecois hockey players.
I believe Sidney Crosby is from Nova Scotia.
Yes,
not Quebec. He just played juniors.
But played in the QMJHL.
Yeah.
So,
But yeah, Mario Lemieux, obviously a French Canadian. Yeah, no. One of the things I liked about this match is that it was organized chaos, and I thought
Yeah.
on a street fight, that's exactly what you wanted. It had your moments where it made you laugh. It had your moments when you're just like, oh my god, and we'll get to some of those in a second. But it gave you a little bit of everything, and you got that emotion out of it. One of the key words I thought you saw, or was really the theme of this show, was aggression. Whether you brought it, whereas maybe you want somebody else to bring it, and I'll get to that one a little bit later. You mentioned that we saw Trish bring that aggression out in the opening steel cage match, and I thought I think we got drunk on aggression in this street fight here. But some of the things that really stood out to me was we saw JD McDonough get involved and pull out Kevin Owens off a pinfall to prolong the match as he was pinning Damian Priest, not Finn Balor, but Damian Priest. We also saw Dominic Mysterio get involved as much as you want, which I thought this was a great way of having people beat up on Dom Mysterio in a right way to get cheered, as we saw the gloves and the hockey stick come into play on that one, as we saw basically a little nice hockey style brouhaha going on. Had to get that one out, by the way. But we also saw Rhea Ripley spear Kevin Owens through the ring announcer's barricade at one point.
Yes.
Everyone in the Judgment Day got involved. We saw the number game come up here. And we eventually saw probably what we didn't expect to see tonight. And that was Finn Balor pinning Sami Zayn to become one half the new tag team champions alongside his partner, Damian Priest. Your guys' thoughts on not only this match, just how it developed, but also your thoughts on the decision to put the tag team championships on Finn Balor and Damian Priest.
I'm not angry with this decision at all. I'm actually quite happy with it. I feel like we're going to get a rematch somewhere down the road with Sami and KO challenging again for the tag titles. But this match as a whole, it was just so much fun to watch. I might even go back and rewatch it later on tonight. That's how much fun I had watching it.
Yeah, I am as well happy with the decision. It now shows that, okay, the Judgment Day is now running Monday Night Raw. Now they can run WWE.
They are the golden stable as it is now.
Because, yes, you have all the gold. And as well the Money in the Bank briefcase. Now, where do they go with that? Where do they go with that briefcase? That's going to be the interesting thing to see here. So I am very happy with this decision because now they can go to all four brands. Not that they weren't doing that already. Or all three brands and do what they do.
Well, technically, the Undisputed Tag titles don't go to NXT, but Dominic Mysterio, who's the NXT North American champion, goes to NXT.
Rhea does too.
Now, so. Rhea does too, but I mean, who's going to tell her otherwise? I sure am not. But but now potentially we'll see some more Judgment Day on SmackDown in regards to them now being the unified tag champions. And I'm okay for it, right? We've been seeing a lot of injuries come into play for both Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. This now gives them a little bit of time off to kind of recoup. We saw Kevin Owens do that monster senton off the balcony onto a table. I believe it was Dominic Mysterio. You saw him clinch those ribs. Her ribs he was nursing for a bit. And we all know what the elbow of Sami Zayn looked like. So given these two a much well-deserved some time to rest and just get closer to 100%, probably the best move too.
Yeah.
So I'm very happy that
that's of course going to.
Go ahead.
Let's not forget that you do have the Superstar Spectacle coming up next weekend in India.
Yeah, and I was going to say, based off the numbers game in this match, this is why I think KO and Sami Zayn are going to be involved in some way in a War Games match against Judgment Day to eliminate that numbers game.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I can't really. I mean, this War Games is very curious to me because we have a lot of stables, a lot of factions now in WWE, and maybe the quote unquote turf wars could be something of intrigue through War Games. I'm going to ask, give us more than 2 teams. Let's try something out here. But at the same time, Survivor Series is not the next PLE. It is Fastlane live on October 6th, I believe.
The 7th. The day after my birthday.
That's it. See, I'm just thinking about you here, Andy.
And I just want to say, this is actually quite the fitting name for where they're going. They're going to be in Indianapolis, Indiana, which is home of the Brickyard, one of the world's most famous racing tracks.
Yep.
Why not call it
Fastlane? Home of the Indy 500.
Yep.
Exactly.
But speaking of jumping gears, so to speak, we now jump gears to our next segment, which is the Grayson Waller effect with special guest host, the American Nightmare, Cody Rhodes, as we get our typical Cody entrance. So, whoa. But before Cody can say Pittsburgh, what do you want to talk about? We get Grayson Waller interrupt, be that kind of dick, get his stuff out there. Cody kind of understands what he's doing. He's like, I've seen it before, whether it's through Piper's Pit, whether it's through Flair for the Gold, whether it's through all the other talk shows that came before here. We all know what's going to happen. I'm going to come on. You're going to say some stupid thing or some mean things to me. I might take off my tie. I might crossroad you. Is that what the people want? They cheer. Grayson Waller says, nah, you came out here. Didn't make an announcement. Please make that announcement. And boy, I don't think we were expecting this. Huh?
No, we were not.
Actually.
Cody Rhodes says, I don't know what kind of political pull I have, but I used it. I saw a wrong a few weeks ago, and I wanted to make it right. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a new member of the Monday Night Raw roster. His name? Main Event Jey Uso.
Yep.
Yeah, this totally took me by surprise because I thought this was just going to be a nothing segment. One of my favorite things I noticed about this whole thing, though, was when Cody was making his entrance. Did you guys not happen to catch Grayson Waller trying to steal the spotlight sort of from Cody as he was making his taunts on the corner and everything like that? I thought that was just perfect. And I'm like, yeah, that's so Grayson, and that's perfect that he did that, you know? But this announcement just took me by surprise. And then I'm like, well, they do need to pull Jay away from the whole bloodline thing now. And I thought, again, maybe he's the fourth man in War, and going back to War Games, maybe he's the fourth man for Cody, Sami, and KO in War Games.
Right. Actually, I suggested that, I believe, as well during the PLE as you and I were watching it, Parrish. But yes, definitely a surprise. I thought for sure he was going to be given or take a little more time off before making his return. I did suspect he would go to Raw. And one super kick to shut Grayson Waller up.
Yeah. Also to not just to pull away from
one super kick.
Yeah. Not just to pull away from the whole thing with the bloodlines, but to kind of cool it off, because I still think we're going to see Jimmy and Jay at Mania.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a feeling Survivor Series, yes, we're really thinking there's well, we all know the return of War Games is going to be at Survivor Series, but we are going to get some traditional 4 versus 4, 5 versus 5 matches like we normally do get. I'm wondering if this year, maybe the Bloodline, not in the War Games match, we could see Team Jimmy versus Team Jay to kind of help push that. Because I do think we're going to see a long-term thing if this is going to lead to a match at WrestleMania, which I'd be totally down for. And I've been down since day one for it.
But, I mean, if you look at, what happened at SmackDown, and I mean, we suggested the, Jay with Cody, Sami, and Kevin. Watching SmackDown last night, you had Jimmy return, and then that little thing with Solo, and then those issues with AJ Styles and the OC. So it's, and this alludes to your idea of, more than two teams.
Mhm.
But, or do you, but who's going to back
I
up
think for
Jimmy and Solo?
Yeah, I mean, as of right now, we're only talking fantasy warfare because we don't know yet.
Right.
We'll let things play through. Maybe this Monday on the live Monday Night Raw watch along, where you see the three of us alongside Carafell, you'll get a little bit more answers to what you could expect. Maybe we get a little bit more fast lane information as well. Live Saturday, October 7th. Not to be confused with October 6th, OMD's birthday. But yeah. But moving on to the next match, and that is for the Raw Women's title, which is not known as the Raw Women's. It's the WWE Women's Championship, contested between the challenger Raquel Rodriguez and the champion, the Eradicator, Rhea Ripley. Little note: Jason Jordan produced this match. They did announce who produced the women's matches. I do not know who produced the rest as of yet. But yeah, I thought this was, in my opinion, maybe the weakest match of the night, simply due to the lack of aggression I saw out of Raquel Rodriguez. This was a match I wanted Raquel to be a lot more aggressive in, and I thought the emotion got for it. I thought their interaction on Monday night was screaming aggression. Give me that. And I felt that there was a lot of tentativeness here between the two of them, which was very unlike, I thought, Rhea Ripley and Raquel. Normally they do bring the best out of each other. There were glimpses in this match where I'm like, okay, Raquel, you're showcasing exactly what we're hoping for. But I just think as a babyface, Raquel needs more aggression. And then out of this, I didn't think the match was terrible, but I did feel that it was missing something. We saw a couple blunders in this match with a powerbomb attempt from Raquel on Rhea. They lost her footing, more into a stun gun into the ropes. But your guys' thoughts of this match, as to no surprise, the Eradicator did come out.
I wanted to enjoy this match. I did to a certain extent, but the aggression, as you said, Parrish, was not there for Raquel. And it kind of wasn't there for Rhea, too. Like, maybe she was already tired from helping out the tag team match. I don't know what it was. But I don't know. It just, something didn't feel right for me in this match. And I don't know what it was.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to take the direct opposite approach. I love the hard-hitting stuff right off the bat, seeing that aggression and the physicality from the both of them, trading clotheslines back and forth to see who could knock each other down. Yes, you had the botches, especially on that power bomb.
And the kick to the rope, which, by the way, I got to give kudos to Raquel on that, because Rhea was actually trying to kick her in the face, but she ended up hitting the rope. So I got to give kudos to Raquel for selling the rope hit.
Yeah.
I'm actually going to correct you on that, because I've done spots like this a lot during my career. Raquel's throat was actually on the rope. So if
she would have kicked up on her face. Yeah. It looked like her face was like.
So by kicking the rope up, you're kicking the rope into her throat there. I just thought she didn't get full extension out of the kick onto the rope. But kudos.
It just looked like from my vantage point. Yeah, it just looked like from my vantage point that Rhea was trying to kick her in the face, but accidentally hit the rope.
I on that spot, I did like the fact that Raquel signified on it. But the one thing I was more impressed by was Rhea Ripley just putting the boots to her right away. One of my main things, if you do something that does not work, immediately go to something else and do something to make you forget about what you just saw. But OMD, you had something to say.
One of the other parts that I loved was Rhea grabbing her by the throat earlier on in the match and saying, you made me bleed my own blood, because she was cut open on the nose. But I loved the physicality in this match. To no surprise. And this is where I'm going to say this, where Chris suggested earlier as Zoe Stark versus Rhea Ripley, I'm going to say Zoe Stark versus Raquel Rodriguez
And I'd be fine with that match too, actually.
in a feud.
Maybe you can get those two in a feud with the winner challenging Rhea at some point.
Yeah, I was just gonna say if you had a number one contenders match involving those two, I'd be more okay with that. But now Zoe Stark now signified a face turn. Raquel Rodriguez is a face. I don't think that's going to be the direction the company would want those two to be. And to clarify on my aggression thing, because they did show some aggression at the beginning stages of this match. But I just thought it died down as the match went on. I thought this match went maybe a little longer than it should have gone, and maybe you would have capitalized everything a little bit on a tighter surface than what we saw.
Yeah.
But at the same time, what I enjoyed in this match was the interference of Dominic Mysterio, where he didn't really lay a hand on Raquel at all, but he did provide a distraction, which then got him into trouble from Raquel, as she did deliver a power slam to Dominic Mysterio, which then allowed Rhea, who throughout the match worked on Raquel's injured knee that she had, and then ended up hitting the Riptide for the 1-2-3. So things ended up getting back on the right track there. I thought the finish was really good. I thought the beginning of this match was really good. I just thought there was too much of a dip between the two stages.
See, and I thought there was a little bit more in terms of the transition. But just like in the Rey and Theory match, I do think that there was a little bit of looking and trying to get themselves into position for spots as well. But yes, this match still sits higher on that card than Rey and Theory.
All right. And as this proceeds, before we get to our main event of the night, we are given a little backstage interview. Not from Kathy Kelly, not from anybody that we normally get. No, we get John Cena, who says, as the host of Payback, he gets the ability to do things that he doesn't get a chance to do normally, because he has that power now. And he brings out the new undisputed tag team champions in Finn Balor, Damian Priest, as they basically reign supreme over the WWE by declaring themselves as champions. Judgment Day has all the gold, and together they are stronger than ever, stronger than anything else. Of course, there's Ascension. Brothers fight because they're a family. And when it's all said and done, the Judgment Day rises. Very strong, but I also love the fact that the last word came from the Money in the Bank winner and holder, Damian Priest. Your guys' quick thoughts on this before we go to the main event?
I actually kind of liked John Cena in this little role. I actually warmed up to him being the host. I'm like, okay, let's see how he's gonna do tonight. And he wasn't like all over the show like a host normally is. But I thought this was just an interesting little segment here to see where we're going as far as the tag team champions go now.
I think the Judgment Day actually rushed that interview just to get it out of the way and head back to the hotel, to be honest. Really, it was kind of pointless because we're going to hear from them on Monday anyways when they open Raw.
We'll hear more about that on Monday Night Raw, as they should open up Monday Night Raw. But the main event are the Monday Night Raw champion, the World Heavyweight Champion, making its debut in the main event. We have the World Heavyweight Championship, and the holder Seth freaking Rollins defends his championship against Shinsuke Nakamura, who I think we both can say over the last few weeks has done a great job of resurging himself into this main event picture. I think this was a great build-up. I thought the behind the scenes, whether it's the video packages or the one that was put out kind of like a comic book this past weekend, I thought was really great. Single fact that Shinsuke notifies Seth, I know about your bad back, for like making that kind of the story that we saw. I thought was a great approach.
Yeah.
And made Shinsuke just that evil, like kind of an evil architect, which is ironic given the fact that Seth Rollins is the architect here, but giving him kind of that purpose of why he's doing what he's doing. And yeah, as before we're into this match, we see that the Great Muta is ringside in this match, as it was reported that he was in Pittsburgh for the pay-per-view. This is exactly the PLE. This is why he was there could be to support fellow countryman Shinsuke Nakamura. But your guys' thoughts on this match before we go to the final.
Okay, so before I get into this match, I gotta say I love that they gave Shinsuke Nakamura a WrestleMania style entrance when he came to the ring. I thought that was fucking cool. Something that we don't see on a B show pay-per-view like Payback. But this match is totally the opposite of what we had in the previous match. This match had aggression out the wazoo, and I fucking loved it. You had Shinsuke Nakamura, who was desperate to win the title. You had Seth Rollins, who was defending his honor and his back and his title, just try to beat the piss out of Shinsuke Nakamura. And this was just from bell to bell. I loved it.
Again, I love the story told in this match. And it goes back to all of the build-up, too, with the back. Seth selling it. But still, fighting on. Shinsuke doing everything he could, trying to be that assassin. And then it comes down to, like a pedigree and then the late stomp. But I loved there was one where Shinsuke transitioned over into an armbar and then transitioned into a triangle. It was just masterful.
And for those who are watching, OMD marked really hard at that part. It was really well done.
But yeah, masterful storytelling. Those two, I would be happy to revisit this match again.
Mm-hmm.
I think we will be revisiting this match.
I'm going to say this. I am a little disappointed that they didn't put the belt on Shinsuke in this match for the reason of letting Seth go and get some back surgery. I know Seth's got his match coming up next week where he's teaming with John Cena in India against Imperium.
Now,
So
before
we'll see.
before you say giving Seth the time off to get back surgery, that's only if he actually does need it. He was on After the Bell this past Friday. Well, it was recorded on Wednesday, but put out on Friday saying, yeah, I have issues with my back, but it is not to the point where I have to relieve from my duties right now. He does not need any major surgeries right now. Okay. He's like, I won this title with my back. I beat all these guys with my back. He's like, obviously there are times it could flare up and they're not fun, but they're not severe enough to make me need to miss time. I do think he is stubborn to the point where he may not know when that time is, but I do think he's also smart enough to rectify when, okay, time is now, let's do something. And I just don't think that time is just yet, because as this match was carried on, as this match was going, we saw all the big bumps. We saw all the back targets. Despite all that, he was still able to roll out of a maneuver from Shinsuke, hit that stomp for the 1-2-3, retain his World Heavyweight Championship. And to, I think, my surprise, I thought this was being a gigantic seed planted to a potential cash-in from Damian Priest. We have an injured champion there, very vulnerable, just screamed cash-in to me, and they didn't go that way. Your guys' thoughts on kind of how this went and what we saw as Seth Rollins still your World Heavyweight Champion?
I'm good with it.
Yeah, I'm happy with it too, but I want to add on to Seth Rollins' back injury. He's actually been dealing with this injury since 2019, as reports I've found, or based on reports I found. So it's for me, it's touch and go for him with the back now that I know how long he's been dealing with it. But I'm happy that he did keep the title. the finish was kind of unexpected for me, and it was actually a nice kind of unexpected finish, which leaves me to want Shinsuke and Seth again, maybe at Fastlane, as OMD had said.
Yeah, no, I was really happy with the finish. I was happy with the match and happy with the PLE overall.
Yeah, I thought with everything being in this, I thought they delivered in the main event. Seth, I know, was very determined to make the first ever World Heavyweight title main event matter. And I think they did that. I thought Shinsuke, even in a loss, looked like $1 million and is back in that main event picture. I would love if they did continue this one more time, perhaps maybe bringing this into Fastlane before we head into the Survivor Series. Nothing but good things to say. I thought they started with the bang with the cage match. I thought they ended with the bang. You had your influx up and down. You had, I thought, a great showing with that tag match. And then say what you will about the others. But I thought they did their job. I thought this match top to bottom did everything that you wanted it to do. And despite of maybe your thought of not being the most exciting pay-per-view or PLE going in, I thought they over-delivered on expectations.
I won't say they over-delivered. They certainly lived up and delivered to my expectations. I believe it was Chris Best alluded to it earlier as being a B pay-per-view, and I did not find that at all. I do not find that there is a B type of pay-per-view anymore.
Well, I mean, like B pay-per-view because you compare it to because I was comparing it to the Royal
Four.
Rumble, WrestleMania, SummerSlam, Survivor Series, you know?
Yeah, no, the big four. And so I get where you're coming from, but I don't think since Triple H took over creative and has been running all of this, I don't think there has been a B pay-per-view. There are some of these other pay-per-views have outshone things like Survivor Series and SummerSlam and the Rumble.
But overall, I'd probably, if I had to rate this show out of 10, I'd probably give it a 7. It's a show that while I probably wouldn't go back and watch it, I'd probably go back and watch some of the matches that were on the show and just the matches, not the show as a whole.
Yeah. Now, before we close off, I will be letting everybody know that if he's still on in a few minutes' time, we will be rating out on the Twitch side to our good friend Mike the Ref. So stay tuned if you're on Twitch for that. But yeah, that was WWE Payback 2023 here. And before we leave, just your overall ending thoughts of not just what you saw, but now what are you expecting to see moving next?
See, this is where I'm not sure because I have a lot of questions coming out of this show that I hope will get answered on Raw and on SmackDown. Because it did feel like there was a few things that were closed off on this show. The Becky and Trish, probably Rhea and Raquel, unless they get another match on Raw or something like that. But it just felt like a few things were closed off on this show.
In the immortal words of Roddy Piper, just when you think you have all the answers, I go and change the questions.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, there is a lot of questions moving forward. And hopefully, like you said, we'll get some build up and some idea of where they're headed beginning on Monday.
Yeah.
I want to actually put this out there because we saw that interference from JD McDonough in the tag title match. Did that help him influence Priest in any way to join Judgment Day?
That's probably something that's going to be answered coming Monday night, where you can watch us 8 p.m. Eastern on the Raw Watch Along.
Or yes, with the dissension that had led up to this and the whole brothers fight thing, does this just plant the seeds for a much harsher breakup for the Judgment Day when they lose the belts?
Yeah, you're asking a lot of questions where the answers are going to unfortunately be answered at a later time. And this is why we watch Raw. This is why we watch SmackDowns. This is why we even watch NXT if we want to know kind of more about the Trish Stratus, Tiffany Stratton.
And see, going back to OMD's Roddy Piper quote there, I really thought I had the answers with Jey Uso. I really thought he was going to come back on SmackDown, challenge Roman for the title again. But clearly, that's not happening.
No, I didn't think he was going back to SmackDown. I thought he'd be going to Raw, but I thought he was going to be taking a little more time off than just 2 weeks.
I thought it was going to be one of those things where Roman defends the title against like Jimmy, and then Jey shows up and costs Jimmy the title, and then Jey gets another shot. That's what I thought was going to happen.
All right. But the one thing that will happen is that we all three will be returning on Monday night for the Monday Night Raw watch along, where you said it's 8 p.m. Eastern. Come check us out live on both our local establishment and Turnbuckle Talks, both their YouTubes as well as the Twitch here at OLE. As I get the raid started, Chris Best, let everybody know what you have coming up and where the good people can find you.
All right, so as Parrish had said, you can catch me, OMD, and Parrish on Monday nights at the Raw Watch Along, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on our local establishment through Turnbuckle Turnbuckle Studios. You can also find me on Facebook, Chris.Best83, YouTube.com at ChrisDamage83, Twitch TV at CBRS_entertainment, and you can find me on Threads at CBestFilms83 as well. Also on Tuesday night, you will find me and the one and only Karl Carafel on Turnbuckle Talk, 8:05 Eastern.
Now, OMD, what about you, sir?
Well, you can find me on Facebook or on Snapchat, One Man Dynamic Capitals on OMD, and on Twitch, OMD17. As well, coming up on Monday, you can catch the three of us on the Raw Watch Along. Potentially, I could be a guest on Turnbuckle Talk on Tuesday night at 8:05 and Thursday night at 8 o'clock. You can catch me and Bubba Duke on the Boar's Nest, where we will be beginning our odyssey on the game known as Starfield.
I'm actually surprised you guys didn't play it this past week because it released on the day you guys did Boar's Nest.
It releases officially on the 6th.
Oh, okay.
We don't have early access.
Yeah, that was early access released.
Yeah.
All right. As everybody is now aware, I have rated the Twitch 2 Mike the Ref. As my socials are scrolling down, you can follow me tomorrow at 12:15 p.m. Eastern alongside my brunch buster buddy, there, Bobby Munson, as we have the next edition of Busting Out, where we talk about a lot of interesting topics, especially one that we saw earlier today that we are choosing not to talk about as we are focusing on.
Yeah, we're
Payback.
more than likely going to be covering that on Turnbuckle Talk. So,
yeah. Anyway, and then you can also follow me on Mondays with the Monday Night Raw Watch Along, as we've discussed earlier. Every Wednesday at about 10 p.m. Eastern, I, alongside Ed Fries, battle each other out on the WWE 2K23 with Wrestle Draft. So everyone, please take the time now to have that last opportunity to hit that notification bell on our YouTube, hit that like button, hit that thumbs up button. Let us know what all we can do better. You see our local establishments things down here. The one you might see is that email at olepodcast@gmail.com. If you have any questions, concerns, or anything to say, hit us up through there. My name is Chris Parrish. I'm alongside OMD and Chris Best. This was us reviewing WWE Payback on the last and final edition of the night. Paper reviews. Thank you, everyone. Oh,